There was only one name that mattered: Bumpy Johnson.
March 14th, 1947, 2:23 in the morning. Dr. Harold Whitmore's eyes shot open. Something felt off. He tried to move his arms. Nothing. Tried his legs. Nothing. He was strapped tight to cold, unforgiving steel. Then the smell hit him. Antiseptic, iodine, surgical alcohol. He was in his own operating room. The overhead lights burned blind. Whitmore blinked, heart hammering his ribs like a trapped rat. That was when he spotted the figure lurking in the corner. Gray suit, fedora dipped low, arms folded. Bumpy Johnson. Whitmore's mouth went dry as dust. He tried to scream, but managed only a pathetic wheeze. "Good morning, doctor." Bumpy's voice was calm, almost polite. He strolled toward the table, shoes clicking on the tile. "You know exactly why you are here." It was not a question. "Please," Whitmore whispered. "Listen, I will do anything. I will operate. I will save her. Just let me walk." Bumpy stopped at the table's edge. He stared down with eyes holding no rage, just cold, dead certainty. 48 hours ago, you said my mother was not worth saving. You said her kind did not belong in your room." Bumpy reached inside his jacket and slowly withdrew a small leather case. "Now you learn how it feels to lose what you cannot replace." What nobody knew, what the history books will never say, is that Bumpy Johnson planned this for 47 hours and 16 minutes. By sunrise in Harlem, Dr. Harold Whitmore would never hold a scalpel again. If this tale has your blood pumping, do me a solid. Hit that like button now. To understand that operating room, you must know who Margaret Moultrie was and what Harlem looked like in March 1947. This is not just about revenge, it is about respect. Margaret Moultrie Johnson was 67 in the spring of 1947. She raised 7 kids in Charleston, South Carolina, survived Jim Crow, poverty, and a husband who worked himself into the grave. She was a small woman, maybe 5 feet on a good day, but everyone said the same thing. That woman had pure iron in her spine. When things got hot for her son Ellsworth back in South Carolina, when he was just a kid with a temper and zero patience for how white folks treated us, Margaret made a choice that saved his life. She sent him north to Harlem. It broke her heart, but she did it. That was Margaret, doing what had to be done. By 1947, Bumpy Johnson changed. He was the most powerful black man in New York City. He ran the Harlem numbers. He had deals with the Italians. That meant territory and protection. He was connected to politicians, police captains, and the judges on the bench. When Bumpy Johnson walked into a room, everybody took notice. When he spoke, everybody shut up and listened. But here is the thing most people missed about Bumpy. Despite the power and the rep, Bumpy Johnson only truly loved 2 things: Harlem and his mother. He had brought Margaret up from South Carolina 5 years prior, put her in a brownstone on 139th, gave her everything. Every Sunday, no matter the heat on the street, no matter the wars brewing or deals being cut, Bumpy ate dinner with his mother. He sat at her table, ate her food. For a few hours, he was not the godfather of Harlem. He was just Ellsworth, her youngest boy. Now, understand the situation with healthcare in 1947. For us, getting proper treatment was not just hard, sometimes it was impossible. Most New York hospitals either refused black patients outright or shoved them in basement wards with garbage equipment. Even Harlem Hospital had only recently started accepting black doctors on staff. After years of fighting, the top-tier hospitals, the ones with the best surgeons and the shiny new gear, were mostly reserved for whites. And the doctors there, many saw us as something less than human. That is just how it was. Dr. Harold Whitmore was one of them, chief of surgery at Presbyterian, a prestigious facility. 54. Harvard man, considered one of the finest surgeons on the East Coast. He operated on senators, on titans of industry, on old money families with names carved into the stone of Manhattan. He never operated on a black patient in 28 years, and he intended to keep it that way. But on March 12, 1947, Margaret Moultrie collapsed. Acute appendicitis. Her appendix was set to blow, and if it did, the infection would kill her in days. Bumpy's boys rushed her to Harlem Hospital, but the surgeons shook their heads. The appendix was positioned wrong. The job needed a specialist, someone with deep experience in complicated gut procedures. Maybe 5 surgeons in New York could handle this cut. Dr. Harold Whitmore was at the top of the list. Bumpy made calls. He cashed in favors from every politician he owned. He offered cash, a mountain of it, more than Whitmore made in 5 years. He did everything a boss could do. It did not matter. When Whitmore got the word, he did not hesitate. He sent a message through his secretary, 6 words that signed his death warrant. I do not operate on coloreds. Those 6 words slithered through the grapevine, passing from runner to runner until they landed in Bumpy Johnson's ear. He was perched in his office, high above Small's paradise, waiting. When Illinois Gordon dropped the news, Bumpy didn't scream. He didn't smash a glass. He didn't curse. He just sat there, stone-faced, for a long, heavy moment, completely still, like a statue. Then he spoke, his voice freezing the blood in Illinois' veins. Get me everything on Dr. Harold Whitmore. Everything. I want to know where he lays his head, where he breaks bread, and where he closes his eyes at night. I want to know what he holds dear. The hunt was on. The next 24 hours moved like lightning. Bumpy had built an intelligence web over the years that would put the feds to shame. He had shoeshine boys catching whispers on Wall Street. He had maids scrubbing floors in the mansions of the rich. He had hack drivers, doormen, bartenders, and nurses on the payroll. People nobody looked at. Folks who were just part of the furniture, all feeding secrets straight back to Bumpy Johnson. Within 6 hours, Bumpy had Dr. Harold Whitmore's life on paper. He knew the doc lived in a townhouse on the Upper East Side, with his wife Eleanor and 2 kids. He knew Whitmore drove a 1946 Cadillac Series 62, dark blue, with plates starting with a W. He knew the man ate lunch at the same joint on Madison Avenue every single day. He knew about the mistress, a young nurse named Patricia, who he paid a visit to every Tuesday and Friday at a flat in Midtown. But here is the part that caught Bumpy's eye. He knew Dr. Whitmore did his high-end work at a private clinic on East 72nd Street, a small joint, strictly exclusive, where the rich paid top dollar to keep their business quiet. And he knew Whitmore was there, alone on Wednesday nights, going over files for the next day. Today was Tuesday, March 12th. Bumpy had less than 48 hours to save his mother and make Dr. Whitmore pay for his disrespect. Most men would pick one fight. Bumpy Johnson was going to win both. First step, he needed a cutter. He worked his contacts at Harlem Hospital and got the name of Dr. Charles Freeman, a black surgeon trained in the same school as Whitmore. Freeman had the hands to do the job, but he never got the shot because the hospitals wouldn't let him hold the knife. Bumpy sent his boys to fetch Dr. Freeman. You are going to save my mother's life, Bumpy told him flatly, and you are going to do it in a real theater with top-tier gear. The best gear in New York. Mr. Johnson, Freeman stammered, his voice shaking. I don't have keys to a place like that. No hospital in this city will let me in. Bumpy smiled, but there was no warmth in it. By tomorrow night, doctor, you will have the run of the best private clinic on the Upper East Side. I am going to see to it, personally. Dr. Freeman didn't ask a single question. His gut told him he didn't want to know the answers. Meanwhile, Bumpy set the second half of the play in motion. He called in 4 of his best soldiers, men who stood tall with him during the wars with Dutch Schultz, men who could disappear into the woodwork or bring the terror when the time was right. Tomorrow night, Bumpy told them. Dr. Whitmore works late at his private clinic. When he walks out, I want him snatched clean. No witnesses, not a sound. And I want him hauled right back into that clinic and strapped to his own table. Roosevelt, a mountain of a man, frowned. What is the play with him, Bumpy? Bumpy went quiet for a beat. When he spoke, his voice was pure ice. That doctor told my mother she wasn't good enough for his room. I am going to show him how it feels to lie on that table. With no power, no choice, and zero hope. He paused. And then I am going to take something from him that he can never get back. Wednesday, March 13th. The clock was running down. Margaret Moultrie was fading fast, getting worse by the hour. The docs at Harlem Hospital did their best, managing the pain, keeping her steady. But everyone knew the score. Without the knife, she was gone. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Bumpy spent the day by his mother's side. He held her hand, spoke low, and told stories about the old days back in Charleston. She drifted in and out of the fog, but every now and then her eyes cleared and she looked at her boy. "Ellsworth," she whispered. "Don't go doing nothing foolish on my account." Bumpy squeezed her hand tight. "Mama, you just rest. Everything is going to be fine. I am handling it." She gave a weak smile. "You always were the stubborn one." That night, the plan went down exactly like Bumpy drew it up. At 8:47 p.m., Dr. Harold Whitmore finished his files at the East 72nd Street Clinic. He locked the doors, walked to his caddy in the back lot, and reached for his keys. He never heard a sound. A sack went over his head. Iron hands grabbed him. Before Whitmore could let out a scream, a needle pricked his neck, and the lights went out. He came to 4 hours later, strapped tight to his own table in his own suite, with Bumpy Johnson staring down at him. "Good morning, doctor." While Whitmore lay there frozen in terror, a different scene was unfolding just down the hall. Dr. Charles Freeman stood in the secondary operating room of that very same clinic, scrubbed in and gowned up. Margaret Moultrie lay on the table, prepped and ready. Bumpy's men had moved her with care from Harlem Hospital, bringing 2 nurses loyal to the cause who would take this night to their graves. The equipment was top shelf, state-of-the-art, the best money could buy, gear that had never touched a black patient until tonight. Dr. Freeman took a deep breath. His hands were stone steady. This was the moment he'd been chasing his whole life. The shot to show the world his true worth when given the steel and the respect he deserved. "Let's get to work," he commanded. For 3 solid hours, Freeman moved with the cold precision of a master, pouring every ounce of knowledge from years of training into this one task, skills the world had tried to bury but could no longer ignore. He cut out the rot, cleared the infection, and stitched her up tight work so clean it would put any high society surgeon in New York to shame. By 3 in the morning, Margaret Moultrie wasn't just stable, she was a survivor. A nurse slipped out to whisper the word to Bumpy, and when the boss heard his mother was gonna make it, the mask didn't break, but the air around him shifted. He didn't go soft. He just settled, like a man finally exhaling after a long dive. Then, he turned his cold gaze back to Dr. Whitmore, the man still binded to the table, shaking like a leaf, his mind unable to grasp how his ivory tower had crumbled into dust. "My mother lives," Bumpy stated flatly, "but that ain't on your account." "Please," Whitmore pleaded, "I've got cash. I'll say I'm sorry. I'll fix anyone you say. Just cut me loose." Bumpy shook his head with a slow, terrifying rhythm. "You're missing the point, Doc. This wasn't about forcing your hand. That man saved her life while you laid there trembling like a rat." Bumpy flipped open the leather case of cold steel instruments. "This is about a different debt entirely. This is about ensuring you carry the memory of this night to your grave." Whitmore's screams began. March 14th, 1947, 3:17 in the morning. The East 72nd Street Clinic. The surgical lights hummed like angry hornets. Dr. Harold Whitmore was strapped down to his own kingdom's throne, the very slab where he'd cut open the city's elite hundreds of times. But tonight, he was the meat, and Bumpy Johnson was holding the knife. "You recognize these toys, Doctor?" Bumpy lifted the steel pieces into the light, one by one. Scalpel, forceps, retractors, instruments. Whitmore treated like lovers, steel he'd handled 1,000 times. "Of course you do. You're the master of the craft." "What? What are you doing to me?" Whitmore's voice shattered. Bumpy laid the tools down and dragged a chair right up to the metal table. He sat, cool as ice water. "Let me educate you on my mother, Doc. She crawled up from South Carolina, raised 7 of us, worked her hands raw just so we could taste a better life. She never begged for a dime she didn't bleed for." Whitmore's eyes darted wildly, hunting for a door that wasn't there. "When I told you she was sick, I put up more cash than you see in 5 years. I wasn't asking for a handout. I was buying a service, paying top dollar." Bumpy leaned in until their breaths mingled. "And you, a man sworn to save lives, you refused. Not for lack of skill, but because of the color of her skin." "I'm sorry," Whitmore choked out. "God, I'm sorry." Those words. Bumpy's voice dropped to a lethal hiss. "The 6 words you sent my messenger. I don't operate on colored patients." "You got any idea what that did to my mother? To me?" A single tear cut through the sweat on Whitmore's face. "It told us that to you, she wasn't a person. She was dirt. Something not worth the breath." Bumpy rose. He lifted the scalpel, catching the light. "Now, here is how the lesson goes, Doctor. You're gonna learn what helplessness feels like. To have your life held by a man who thinks you're trash," Whitmore screamed, thrashing against the leather straps. He begged like a child. Bumpy signaled a soldier, who stepped up and jammed a gag in the doctor's mouth. The horror that followed stayed locked in that room. But when his staff found Dr. Harold Whitmore the next morning, he was breathing. He was awake. He sat in his own waiting room, draped in a gown, eyes fixed on his hands now wrapped in heavy, blood-spotted gauze. The cops came, asked their questions. Whitmore claimed his mind was blank, said it must have been a robbery gone wrong, said he saw no faces. But the streets talk, and the truth hit the medical world like a bomb. Dr. Harold Whitmore was missing 3 fingers on his right hand, his moneymaker, the hand of God. He'd never cut again. And somehow, every soul in the city knew Bumpy Johnson had signed the work. Not cause of proof, there was none. Not cause of snitches, they stayed quiet. It was just the law of the concrete jungle. You cross Bumpy Johnson. You hurt his blood. You pay the price. 3 fingers. 1 for every word of his insult. Colored. Patience. Brutally elegant. You thought your hands were too holy to touch a black woman? Now those hands won't touch a soul ever again. But the legend wasn't the violence. It was that Bumpy Johnson didn't clip him. He let the man breathe. He let him walk the streets of New York for decades with that mangled claw. A permanent scar for the world to see. A walking billboard that shouted, "This is the price of disrespecting Bumpy Johnson's kin." Putting a bullet in him was mercy. This was torture. By sunrise, the tale had flooded every gutter and penthouse in the city. "You hear about the high society, Doc? The one who spat on Bumpy's mother?" "Yeah," woke up 3 fingers light. Alive, but tight-lipped. The whisper traveled from Harlem barber chairs to Manhattan cigar lounges, down to the dark backrooms of Brooklyn. It chilled the air in every hospital break room. It reached the ears of the dons, the senators, and the police captains. And the message rang like a church bell. You can stack all the gold in the world. You can hang degrees on your wall. You can hide behind high society status and the power white America hands you. But cross a man like Bumpy Johnson or touch his people, and that shield crumbles to dust. Dr. Harold Whitmore hung up his coat for good just 3 months later. He lied to his peers, claiming his health was failing, but we know the score. The streets knew the truth. His hands were too shaken to cut, and he couldn't stomach the glares, the whispers, or the fingers pointed at his back. He fled to Connecticut with his wife, fading into a quiet, disgraceful exile. Word is he never spoke of that night again, not even to his own blood. Some scars are too deep for conversation. Meanwhile, Margaret Moultrie made a full comeback. Dr. Charles Freeman performed a surgery that was nothing short of a masterpiece. She clocked another 12 years, passing peacefully in 1959 with her kin nearby. But for Dr. Freeman, that night was the moment his career shifted gears. The word hit the street about the black surgeon with hands as steady as any man in New York. Inside a year, he held the keys to 3 different hospitals. 5 years later, he was the boss training new black surgeons, passing the torch to the next generation. But something else shifted in the city after that night. Hospitals in New York quietly started opening doors for black folks with cash. It wasn't out of charity or kindness. It was born from cold, hard terror. They feared that turning away the wrong patient would bring heat they couldn't handle. Bumpy Johnson achieved with action what protests and politics never could. He made racism a financial liability. He made discrimination a death sentence. That is a language every businessman understands clearly. Here is the lesson Bumpy Johnson taught that night. Respect is never given freely. It is something you have to take. And sometimes, taking respect means setting an example the world will never forget. Dr. Harold Whitmore held all the cards: money, degrees, and status. He had the shield of a society that said black lives were worthless. But Bumpy Johnson stripped him naked in a single night, and he didn't need an army. He didn't play politics. He moved with cold precision, a solid plan, and a message so sharp that no one could miss the point. True power isn't about the number of people you control. It's ensuring nobody ever forgets the price they pay for crossing you. Every Sunday, like clockwork, Bumpy still broke bread with his mother. He sat at her table. He ate her food. But now, a different light shone in his eyes when he looked at her. The satisfaction of a son who protected his blood the only way he knew how. Listen, if this story resonated with you, do the right thing and smash that subscribe button. Drop a like if you know what protecting family truly costs. And tell me straight in the comments, did Bumpy make the right call, or did he step over the line? Next time, we break down how Bumpy Johnson walked into a precinct, sat down, and refused to move until every badge in Harlem knew his name. You don't want to miss that sit down. Just remember, on these streets, respect was never a handout. It was earned. And Bumpy Johnson collected his dues every single day.